Sorry, Jerry. And now that we're done talking about Jerry and Dora, so the midterm presentation, it probably won't be a presentation. You guys will probably just do exactly like your final presentation was last time. You'll just put together a PowerPoint and email it to me. So, and then the final presentation you will do, which you're going to be writing. You're going to make up a scenario. So let's go. So you're going to pretend you have some sort of client and they have some sort of issue. And then based upon the intervention that you choose tonight, you're going to use that as your intervention. And so, for example, we're going to talk about stimulus control. I had a student that wasn't learning his alphabet. So we use stimulus control, and you're going to cite 10 articles about stimulus control. And how it relates to your work. And this is how the student, progressed. And you're going to make graphs up. So it's going to be a little pretend study. If you have an actual client out there that fits in with your intervention, you're more than welcome to use that. Just obviously keep HIPAA or FERPA, well and good. So, yeah. So, with that kind of said, I don't know how many people printed out the syllabus. So there are several interventions, and since the first article review is technically due next week, you guys might want to choose your topic area so you're not wasting your time doing some other article review on someone else's intervention. So there are several different. Has anyone not looked at the syllabus? Be honest, you're not on camera. All right.
I just got added to the class yesterday.
All right. Oh, did you? Okay. If you're not particular, I have a good one for you.
Okay.
So, just because
I'll take it.
you'll take it.
Yeah.
All right.
I trust you. Bad thing, bad thing.
Do you have one for me?
I'm not sure what type of clients you. Do you have clients right now? Okay. So, I was going to assign, if you want, I could assign you the self-management strategy, since we probably should check up on one of our clients anyway.
Yeah.
Should have been using it.
Yeah.
So, and that's week 8.
So.
Self-management strategy, week 8.
Okay.
So when I set up Blackboard, I set up all the folders to open the week before. I'm going to have to go and reset that because, for example, Kirsten can't access the week 8 articles right now because I have it set so the folder won't open up. So I'm going to have to go through and open up all those. So when you get assigned your strategy, just go to that week, pick an article from that folder, do the article review on it. And that kills one of the 10 articles you have to do.
We can use it.
You can use it. Next, most of them have 3 articles in there, so you're going to get 3 freebies, and you're just going to have to find 7 more on your own. So easy. So, and ideally try to get 5 of the articles that you're going to do for your final paper from JABA or JAB. The other 5 can be from various other, peer-reviewed journals. Don't go pulling and quoting Wikipedia for me, please. I won't count that as an actual, reference. So, all right. So, Kirsten, you got that one. All right.
So we can just raise a hand and pick one?
If you've got one, go for it.
Can I do antecedent intervention?
Antecedent interventions. And a lot of these chapters will have several different strategies, like there's several different types of antecedent interventions. When you're doing it, just choose one type of antecedent intervention. So, all right. That's a good one. All right.
I don't have that, so I don't know.
How about?
I'm waiting for the syllabus to download it. I didn't print an actual
Are you
one.
working anywhere?
Not yet.
Well,
What type
if
of
they're
population
listed on the
do
syllabus,
you eventually want to work with?
I thought it
You
should
like
have
it?
potential.
Oh, I see,
Um,
I see, I see.
no.
How about-
Okay.
you wanna do, since you don't know, imitation is pretty easy to generalize everywhere.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that one tonight.
I don't know which one should I do, because I don't know.
Can we choose
Anyone
the
else?
how many are there? There's nine.
I prefer if everyone chose a different one,
One, two,
Yeah.
three, four, five, six, seven.
so, yeah, there's 10 different ones, so we should all be able to get a different one.
Do you have a suggestion for them?
For you,
You should have just
It's about choosing.
Make it really hard.
Yes, exactly.
I would say, Keith, yours would either generalization and maintenance of behavior change
Okay.
is actually probably a good one for
All
you.
right.
So, especially if working with home hospital students, we want to make sure that they can do the same thing there as they do in our district.
That's good.
So,
Do you have one for me?
what type of clients are you hoping to work with?
Shop addiction. Shopping addiction.
Shopping addiction? Then I would say extinction is your cup of tea.
So you have
So.
experience.
Either that or token economies works well too.
Okay, I'll try.
Let's do extinction.
Okay.
So. All right.
Am I the only one left?
Darcy, for you,
So this is for the final presentation.
this is for the final
You
presentation.
said we'll create and describe in detail scenario, so,
Yeah. For you, I think shaping might be a good one,
okay,
because with physical therapy, you have a terminal behavior you want to eventually see, and you slowly get to that, unless you have a preference on something else.
I don't, I mean, I often don't see the patient more than once.
Oh,
But I
That is
sometimes I
problematic
do.
then.
Sometimes I do, so it really doesn't matter.
actually,
what
then
I do.
maybe a good one for you would be the token economy and contingency contracting. I don't know, like Alcoholics Anonymous use a lot of this when they don't see their clients very often. They kind of rely on someone. and-
Actually, let me do that. I mean, I do see some patients, but it's not always every,
Yeah.
it may be a handful of days before I see them again,
Okay.
so.
Yeah. Well, and I would say normally too is self-management and self-monitoring would be a good one, but I already gave it to Kirsten.
Okay, I'll
So,
do that.
but yeah, do week 7. That's a good one.
Okay.
Which leaves us shaping, chaining, stimulus control. Are you planning to work with students with autism a lot?
Yeah.
That's kind of your end goal. Shaping's not a bad one. We can do that.
Okay.
So, and if you start getting into it and you're like, this isn't really what I'm interested in, let me know. But like I said, prefer if everyone had a different one. It looks like someone's going to overlap though. Well, it actually looks like 2 people might overlap. So, stimulus control or chaining would be good for you. Probably stimulus control would be on the elementary
I'm
level.
still waiting for the syllabus,
Okay.
and so I'll use stimulus control.
Yeah. All right. Jerry, you're gonna do chaining, okay? And we got Dora.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
I mean, yeah, I have him as well. So we're gonna have to overlap some here.
I mean, we're 2 kids.
Yeah, we're gonna get Amin to do differential reinforcement. There's several different types. There's DRI, DRA, DRO. So he'll overlap with you some, but I have a feeling that when we get down to it, you guys will have very different things. So, and we'll have Dora overlap with you, Darcy, since there's group contingencies, token economies, and group contingencies. So, and so you could do one and she could do another type. So, all right. And like I said, we can easily change things up if you get into yours and you're really adverse to it.
For our midterm presentation,
Yeah.
that doesn't have to do with what we picked right now, right?
It definitely could,
Okay.
and I would recommend that you would, so that way you can start kind of hashing it out. Because what you could do is, hey, there he is. I just assigned you a case.
Okay.
So you're going to be doing differential reinforcement. So we'll explain a little more to you. So, yeah, I'm going to take a look at this midterm and figure out what I want to do with it. 'Cause the way I have it right now, yeah, well, it would be with your intervention because I guess you're using just one article. And you're talking about that article. So use it with your intervention. Hopefully that will kind of guide your final. So, like I said, this one's going to be very similar. Well, it's identical to what your final was last quarter.
But without the 10 articles.
The final this quarter is the 10 articles. The midterm is exactly like your final last quarter. So you're just going to choose an article and put together that PowerPoint. So.
Oh, was that?
Yeah. But instead of presenting it, I think I'm just gonna have you guys email it to me, so we're not wasting the entire class with you guys presenting, unless anybody really, really, really wants to. So,
We could actually maybe pick this theme to even start getting research for our dissertation if you like it, right?
if you like it, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe we might as well be using this as our groundwork.
Yeah.
Foundation for.
Yeah. Which is why, as we're going through this, if you decide, hey, the strategy that we're talking about is very much in line with my dissertation, let me know, and I'll be okay with changing it. So I just like having everyone do different ones because when we do the final presentation, it's kind of a nice review of here's everything we talked about in the quarter and here's how someone has applied into a situation. So, you know me, I'm not strict about everything. So, all right, so I'm going to fade out of this real quick to actually talk about the article review and show you what I expect from the article review. And hopefully this will be much nicer. So I posted this on Blackboard probably about 35 minutes ago. So this is the template I want you to use for the article review this time. I'm not looking for an APA paper. So you're just going to stick in, the only thing that's APA format in this is going to be the reference right here at the top. So format this one APA. Other than that, I couldn't care less. You're going to just provide a brief abstract. Yep.
By reference, you only mean that particular article?
That one article,
There
yeah.
is going to be more references?
No, this is for your article review.
Just that one article?
There are 2 article reviews this quarter.
I mean, like, what
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that column?
Yes. So article 1 will go in here. And article 2 is you're going to do a different page. So it's got the abstract. You're going to just briefly talk about subjects and settings, target behaviors, how the procedure and data were collected, what the inter-observer agreement looks like. You're going to list the tactic or tactics that were used, so the dependent variable. And hopefully this should be very straightforward given that you're pulling it right out of the folder that's week 3, on whatever week 3 was. Anyone else hear a cloudmobile come by? All right, so hopefully this won't be easy to identify. The principle of behavior, which hopefully everyone will be able to get. And these are going to start combining and then just summarizing the results. So, and then just a brief, how could you apply this to your study, or was this study educationally significant, or I should say socially significant? So when you type everything up, it probably will be about 3, maybe 4 pages long, if that even. The longer your paper is, the more I have to grade, which makes me grumpy. So you don't need to write a lot for this. So, But once again, hopefully this will be kind of like a quick cliff notes. So when you're doing your article review and you're finally doing your final presentation, you don't have to go back and reread that article. You've got all your quick little notes here, and you can just pull it up and say, oh, that's right, this is what it's about. Let me cite in my quick review. Good to go. Make sense? All right. And as always, ask questions when the time comes for these things to be due. All right. I apologize, I forgot my horn tonight, guys. I'll bring it next week. So, all right, that's all I was going to cover in the syllabus. Anything else? Anyone have any questions about the syllabus? All right, you can ask me later. So, we're going to talk about activities because that's what I said most of this quarter is going to be doing is just activities. So, activity assignments typically is you're going to pick a partner. It's ideal if throughout the quarter you're mixing it up a little bit, so you and your partner don't get too chummy. You start to meet everybody else in your class, that sort of thing. So one person's going to be assigned, or not. You're going to pick one person to be one person to be two, and that way it's easier for me to say, all right, group one, you guys go out. Group two, stay here. Let me debrief you on what you're going to do, and group one comes back in. All right. So if there's an odd number, someone gets to pair up with me. So, all right. Primarily what we're going to be doing for our activities is we're going to do trial by trial data. Anyone want to take a stab at what that is? Do you guys learn trial by trial data yet? All right. I'm glad I put a couple extra slides in about this then. So, this is often just called discrete trials. This is for very simple discrete behaviors that can easily be scored as either correct or incorrect. Either it happened or it didn't happen. There's no ambiguous, essays where, yeah, they got some of the aspect of it, no, they didn't get parts of it. That wouldn't necessarily fall under discrete trial. These should be very clear behaviors, whether it happened or didn't happen. All right. And you can easily indicate whether there was a prompt involved. When we get to talking about prompts, we're going to talk about how to document some of that. Or if no response was done, you can easily mark that. So depending upon where you eventually work or how you want to keep data, I typically use for correct responses a plus, an incorrect, a minus. Some places will use ones and zeros. Some, will just say correct, incorrect, whatever it is. So however you feel you want to keep your data, just make sure that as you're doing it, you're consistent. Prompts, we'll talk about those, but usually those are done with letters like gestural or verbal, whatever it may be. And then no response, pretty much I've always seen as NR. So, and you'll have lots of practice, so don't stress out about it. All right, so we're going to do a quick example of discrete trial training. Hopefully you guys will learn this quickly. If not, like I said, we'll have lots of practice with it. All right, it's going to be a very simple, easy one. So here we have what we call our discriminative stimulus. Does that ring a bell? The SD? So the SD is touch blue. All right. Our target behavior is, any guesses? Touch in the blue. All right. So we have our antecedent, our behavior, and then we always want our consequence. So in this case with discrete trial, it's going to be either positive reinforcement or a correction procedure. So for example, if I said touch blue, got it right? Hey, great job. High five, whatever it may be. The correction procedure we'll just use in here is touch blue. No, try again, touch blue, and then you'll show them, and then you'll do it again. So touch blue, and hopefully they'll get it. All right? So, kind of makes sense on the antecedent behavior and consequence discrete trial. That was a quick and dirty. So we're going to practice it 4 times. Any volunteers? Oh, come Come on, see, this is where I need Jared.
Do you have to get out there?
You have to get up here. It's really hard to touch blue from there unless you're, you know,
Well,
Fantastic
I wasn't sure
Four
what we were
Elastic Man.
doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were standing up there or saying something and you would do it. I'll do it.
All right, come on up. You're not colorblind, are you?
I hope not.
We might
We'll
find out.
out.
All right, so we'll start with our, I'm gonna keep my data collection over here. So on occasion get one wrong, obviously, so we can model. So
Okay.
1, 2, I'm pretty sure I've got 4 trials. So typically each of these is called a trial, the whole thing we call a session. So, all right, you ready?
Yeah.
Touch blue. Nice job. Touch blue. Nope, try again. Touch blue. All right, and now I would repeat my antecedent. Touch blue. All right, good. So she got it wrong the first time. Touch blue. No, try again. Touch blue. So, all right. Touch blue. All right, good job. So, everyone think they can do that? All right. Obviously, our tasks are going to be a lot more complex than just touch blue. So, I tried to make some of our activities very grad school related. So, thank you very much. You are excused from participation for the rest of the quarter.
All my points.
So, all right. So with that methodology, we're going to go into stimulus control. I'm not even going to ask if people got to read the chapter or not. So I'm hoping so, because I'm going to cruise through definitions and what exactly stimulus control is, and we're going to jump right into an activity. So if you haven't read it, hopefully after we do the activity, you go back and read the chapter. Hopefully the chapter will make sense. As I was saying though, when we were talking about the interventions, a lot of these chapters have multiple interventions that fall under the category of stimulus control. So we're not going to do an activity for every single intervention, especially this week and next week because we're catch up on stuff. So we won't necessarily be able to apply everything in the chapter. So first of all, let's talk about stimulus control. So stimulus control is all about the presence of the antecedent stimulus. So everything that falls before that behavior. I'm going to draw our 3-term contingency. I'm not going to include the motivating operation. So everything, stimulus control must fall in the context of the antecedents. All right. If someone's talking about an intervention, they're calling it a stimulus control, but it involves either the behavior, the response, or the consequence, they're mislabeling it. All right. So that's a good, way to remember it. So the rate, latency, duration, or amplitude of a response is then altered. So ideally what you're doing is you're putting something in place that will hopefully get that individual to emit the correct response. All right, make sense? So it's a lot of times what people call prompts. Okay. So a lot of the times you'll see stimulus control used in mass trials. And mass trials is usually focusing, I want to teach them this one little thing, and that's all I want them to learn, and so we're going to prompt them until they get that one thing correct, and hopefully don't need any of those prompts. So, ideally, you want to transfer that stimulus control so they generalize that behavior and they don't need all those prompts. So a couple ways to transfer stimulus control is using most to least prompts. So when we're talking about most to least, like a full physical prompt, so taking someone's hand and making them do it is a very intrusive prompt. Where just slightly guiding them is a little less. Just pointing and then maybe even just saying verbally, try that second one, whatever it may be. So eventually fading those prompts till the point where they're able to do it independently. So another way is doing graduated guidance, which is shaping. And we're going to talk about shaping later tonight. It has its own little section. So least to most prompts. So this is usually when you're first teaching the behavior that you have no idea whether the client can do, is least to most prompts. You want to see what they can do on their own. If they can't do it, then you slowly add a little bit in until you know exactly how much involvement you need to have. So this is usually when you're instructing, this is usually when you're trying to get your baseline, if that makes sense. You have a very inquisitive
Can you
look
say that
at it.
again?
Yes.
Please?
So when you're first trying to get your baseline, trying to figure out how much the student or client will do on their own, this is a good method. When you're instructing and you're trying to get them to do it on their own, you usually use most to least. No problem. So, and then there's what's called time delay, and this is more of the not quite inner response, but it's the time between when you say your antecedents, your discriminative stimulus, and when you're actually intervening. So typically the time delay for a correction procedure is about 2 seconds. So you say it, nothing, you don't get a response, then you go in and do your physical prompts, whatever it may be. When you're first teaching a brand new behavior, particularly to someone that's lower mental abilities, you would use what's called a 0-second time delay. So you give them the antecedent, touch blue, and then you immediately grab their arm and make them touch blue. So, and slowly expand that to 1 second, touch blue, and then grab their hand and move it. So hopefully with the time delay, the idea is that you slowly get them to learn what the response is and how to do it. So, well, like I said, you're intervening in the antecedent before the response actually occurs. Yep.
Is number one like gradual release of control? Is that,
Yeah.
it's the same thing, just different name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Zone of proximity, just kidding.
What?
Zone of proximity, just kidding. We hated that one.
Yeah, not quite. So, all right. Things that influence stimulus control. So, pre-attending skills. Obviously, you want to make sure that your client is paying attention to you. Those with severe ADHD, you ask them a question, they may have no idea what you asked because they're watching that squirrel. So, stimulus control, make sure they're attending. Stimulus salience. Did we talk about salience last quarter? I don't think we did. Salience is just how prevalent that stimulus is in the environment. So, if you have like little, you say, hey, point to the square, it's not very prominent of which one's the square. So you want to make sure with stimulus control that, it's very clear, hey, point to the square. So salience is just the, how in your face it is. So used a lot with marketing. So bright colors, big logos, that sort of thing. So they're hoping to influence your behavior before you actually admit the behavior. So masking and overshadowing. I honestly do not see these terms used very often in the articles, but masking is more of what, whoa, not ready for that. All right, interesting. Okay. So masking is when there's things in the environment that interfere with the stimulus control of the target that you want. So the book uses the example of like the teacher's trying to teach something, there's a whole bunch of kids in the class, and the student with ADHD is more distracted by all the disruptions in class than paying attention to the stimulus up at the board. And so masking kind of, trying to think of a good way to put this in. So masking kind of hides or distracts, the purpose up there. So like a mask, it covers, I don't know. So,
Is this like, I'm thinking of a subtest and an assessment. Would this be similar to, for example, you're telling the student to pay attention to a word like red. So whenever someone says red, touch red. But there's a lot of sounds behind that, and it starts to get really complicated. So maybe it's a little lower and the sounds are louder. And so to be able to identify red, you really have to pay attention. Would it be something similar to that?
Yeah, exactly. So something is interfering with that stimulus control. Identify red, they're hearing all sorts of other things. So, what examples? Yeah. Oops. Yeah, your example,
It's not good.
well, it kind of, it's almost overshadowing.
I think I have one.
Yeah.
On the CAS, we have one test for attention where they use colored words like red, purple, green that are written out as words, but they'll print them in a different color. And the student has to tell what color they're that it's printed in, not the word. So the ink will be blue, but the word will be spelled red.
Yeah.
And they have to do it timed to see, and then they have to they get mixed up.
Yeah, and then that's actually a good example, because that's, you want them to, whatever, say red, but it's printed in blue. Yeah, so one stimulus is interfering with the actual stimulus that you want.
Yeah, and
So,
it's timed.
Yeah.
So there's actually two, the time.
Well-
Does time count as that too?
It could if the child's focused on the time. They're so worried about going quickly. Then yes, that would be another one that would
But
interfere.
the core of the test is looking for attention.
Yeah.
That's the.
Yeah, exactly. And so masking certain things, like, only giving them just that word with all the other interfering. So that would be a way to do the stimulus control. With overshadowing, yours is probably a better example of overshadowing, because overshadowing is when it completely blocks. Something is so much bigger than the stimulus that you're trying to get them to pay attention to. So there's a lot more noise going on. They're still able to look at the board, but they're having trouble focusing on it because there is so much other things going on. So, yeah. Like I said, I don't see these in the literature very often, so I wouldn't get hung up on these when you're reading your book. I think, honestly, in the book, I feel like there's 2 paragraphs on, both of these, and that's it. So. All right. Any questions on influences of stimulus control? All right. And then transfer stimulus control is obviously you want them to respond naturally to whatever is in the environment, and you don't want them to be controlled by someone prompting them, or big huge arrows that are like, point to this section right here and you'll get it right. So so you want to eventually do stimulus fading. So fade those extra prompts, extra flashy signs out. And then there's stimulus shape transformations. Our activity is going to be based around stimulus fading tonight, because stimulus shape transformations are very time, what's the word I'm looking for? Time intensive. It takes a long time. I think the example in their book, they're trying to get a kid to spell the word car, and so they start with a picture of the car, brum, 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 and then they make part of the car, see how I do this. So, there's your car, looks slightly like it, but you start to get the C and the A and the R, and then they, turn it into, look at that, there's your car, brum, brum, brum. And then they hopefully say, how do you spell car? There it is. So it's very time, intensive, and it gets to be really annoying. And once again, I don't see too many people use that, other than the one time I do see this and they don't transfer the stimulus control out of it is if you go into some elementary schools, sometimes you'll see the alphabet and the A will be part of the alligator's mouth and the B will be a B, but they don't necessarily fade that out. So they do the initial part and they don't fade it out. So I do see on occasion kids that fall under that stimulus control then, where you say, what letter is this? And they say, A for alligator. And you're like, just tell me the letter. A for alligator. And you're just like, ugh, someone did not fade it off properly. So there's a curriculum out there, which we, depending on if I get to teach the class, we might talk about next quarter called Touch Math, or they have Touch Money and all various other things, where they use a lot of this stimulus fading and stimulus shape transformation. And I see a lot of times where teachers will start with the initial program and then never go through the entire program and fade it properly. And then honestly, the kids do not generalize the behavior very well. So hopefully next quarter we'll get to play with that. So that said, we're going to move on to our activity. So activity is going to be stimulus fading activity. So before we get started, choose your partner, and everyone's going to need to choose 1 and 2. We have an even number now, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, 1 or 2.
All right, everyone's got a partner?
Mine would be a
All right,
part.
well, turn around.
Yeah.
So
We
you
can just
two,
We're working together, I need a partner.
Oh, then I'm your partner.
Okay.
All right, partner. All right, so everybody decide who's going to be 1 and who's going to be 2.
1, 2.
So, I may end up sending one, I don't know if that classroom down the hallway is going to be open. So, one group may go upstairs to do it. Why I want you guys to separate is we're going to go through some steps of what we're going to be doing, but I don't want the client necessarily to know all the answers, so that way they're getting some things wrong. Because the first activity is always going to be very elementary. The second activity is going to be much more difficult. So, and if this doesn't work, I apologize. I'm totally trying this for the first time. We did some of these last year, but I tried to do it every week this time. So, okay. I thought okay. That's right. You guys, partner can see this one. So for our first activity, we're going to teach the difference between Q, B, D, and P. Anyone does that was a total violation. I was about to ask if anyone's dyslexic in the class. So we're going to be teaching someone the difference between Q, B, D, and P using a stimulus prompt. So the way this is going to work, and everyone's going to need paper tonight. I have a couple extra pieces. It looks like somebody left an article up here that we can probably use the back of it. So if anyone wants scrap paper.
Can you get plain ones from?
Sure, I've got only 3 pieces here, but so maybe while we're working on the activity, you can run and do that for us. So first thing you're going to do, and everyone's going to do this because the second activity you're going to need the same amount of paper. So tear a piece of paper into 4 pieces. So obviously big enough that someone can read on it. I would say take a piece of paper, 4 sections.
Does it matter how full sections are?
I don't think so. Yep, that works. Yeah. Because one group is going to be writing the letters, another group is going to be writing words. So make sure it's big enough to write some words on it. All right. Hopefully nobody's completely OCD and needs scissors at the moment. I'm freaking out. No. All right. If you are number 1, you're going to write one letter on each of those pieces of paper. So if you're number 1, write Q on 1, B on 1, D on 1, P on 1. Don't draw a line underneath it to indicate which one's P, which one's Q. Just write the letter itself. All right? If you're number 2, make sure you peer over the person so that you can actually kind of see their handwriting and hope that you can read it.
That be lowercase.
Yes, it has to be lowercase. So we are teaching dyslexics tonight. All right. So for anyone really interested, there's a couple articles out there that talk about how dyslexia isn't necessarily a thing. It's just bad stimulus control. And so we're going to be teaching appropriate stimulus control. So
we shouldn't have written it in cursive, huh?
no, they need to be as sorry.
I did a Q in cursive.
Well, it would be hard to fade that one, but
There's a little
No.
line there. Yeah,
All right.
but then you might know what it is.
everyone's got their letters ready? So here's the next thing I want you to do. And hopefully you have pencils, because if you don't have pencils, it could be a little harder.
Pencil?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to add that in. I think I have an extra pencil if someone needs it. I have it.
I might have an extra one.
All right. So you have one. Anyone need a pencil? Wow. Everyone's got a pencil? You need a pencil.
And highlighters.
Highlighters, but they would make it time intensive. Okay. So using your pencil, lightly circle the tail of each letter. All right. So lightly with your pencil, circle the tail. All right. Everybody understand that direction?
I don't think 2s are doing it yet.
You know, 2s aren't doing this. 2s are going to be doing something different. So, all right. So we're going to do trial by trial data, like we demonstrated with the touch blue, to record correct responses. All right. So you're going to put your 4 letters out in what we typically call a messy array. A lot of times you'll see things structured where people will put all 4 of them in a nice little array. What we want is a messy array. You just throw them around so there's no rhyme or reason to it. All right. So you're going to arrange your 4 into a messy array, and then your discriminative stimulus, your SD, is going to be point to whichever letter, Q, B, whatever it may be. All right. Then you're going to provide a consequence. Hey, good job. No, try again. Point to Q, and you're going to have them do it. All right. So all makes sense so far? With all good behavior analysis, you're going to have some sort of criteria. So you're going to get them to answer correct in 4 out of 5 trials. So you're going to number your data sheet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't get so many wrong that you have to do this multiple times. Maybe just get 1 wrong. All right. Once they get 4 out of 5, we're going to start our stimulus fade. So what's going to happen is, hey, you met your session, you got 80% correct. So now we're going to stimulus fade. You're going to take the pencil and you're going to erase parts of the circle. So you're decreasing that stimulus control. No longer is the student necessarily relying on, I know this is a cue because, you know, the tail is at the bottom. You're gonna slowly fade that out. You're gonna run it again. Once they get 4 out of 5 again, you're gonna erase a bit more. Until eventually, it's entirely just as the letter. Does that make sense? All right. So, nice easy example here for you guys to actually practice some discrete trial. So trial by trial data. All right. So go ahead and do that. Work with your partner. If you guys get stuck on whatever, I'm here. And after this, we're going to get much more complex. So treat this seriously. And make sure you fully understand how to run trial by trial data.
To be honest, those circles just makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
Right? Make it P as B. Yeah,
You need to write that.
Seriously.
There
It makes it difficult to me to know which is the right answer with
Draw.
circles. It's very confusing for me.
Well, especially upside down, too. For you. Because now, this one looks like a P, but it's actually a D for her.
D is
So it
bottom.
might be, but I don't know if it'd be easier for you to come around.
Oh, because I'm
Point is, they're supposed to be facing me.
Well, okay, who's,
supposed to be in the She's
Ah,
number
okay,
two.
she's number 2.
okay.
Yeah.
Do we do corrective
Point
feedback?
would be.
Yes, absolutely. Practice doing that corrective feedback.
Good job, Johnny.
I'm on. So,
Point
thank you for coming.
Okay, point to the D.
And
Good job.
Point to
I want you to
I
point
want you to
to
point to
D.
Q.
I got the first one,
the.
right?
Good job.
You got the first one right?
Yeah, I think
Well done.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Well, if we did.
Now you erase the circles.
So we would do.
Point to the Q.
Yeah, 3 out of 4.
Yeah, the Q.
Oh, not the tantrum.
Point to the P. No, that's not the right one. Point to the
Where's
P.
my minion?
Okay, well, that's.
It sounded like me.
So I said G.
Really?
The second time.
Why did I turn my number?
Oh.
You do one, right?
No, but I want
Point to the Q again. Very good.
Very good.
Where's the B? Nice, very good. Yay.
Good job.
For the second.
Good job.
A dotted line.
A dotted line for the second part.
Yeah, like you're just erasing part of
So,
the,
what else did you guys say?
yeah, so it'll basically look like that. And then your document.
No, and then you start erasing that.
This is actually what
I
kind of.
would just go across like that.
We actually maybe putting it on line on the top of the line and it's here. Did you know you did that? You didn't terminate.
You don't erase the whole
See
circle.
what you did here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you did here?
And this whole way faster.
Yeah.
See, and that's where possibly masking would be a good example, is that you're just so distracted by knowing that this little line is a key.
Or that key, put little line in.
Yeah.
Can you find the D?
Yeah, so that might be, actually, that
Ooh.
was it.
Because I've memorized where the lines were, so I could get.
Where's the Q?
I just looked at things that they have.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, it's just the font.
Yep.
There's two P's.
Where's the D?
Point to C.
No, that's not.
That's to be messy, but I don't think it's
Should theoretically.
Very
supposed to be upside down. But which one's the T? Everything's a point.
Yes.
Which one am I doing?
Then contact. Maybe
Point to the B.
Find the B.
control. But then
Point to
and
the
point
B.
to the-
the behavior is where the consequence is. Okay.
Point
Okay,
to.
where's the P?
Yeah, because if you
And
just,
now-
if you just did the fading, and you never gave her feedback on it, she would never know if she's pointing to D or B correctly. So that's why you give her the positive reinforcement.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually where the article about dyslexia talks about it a lot, is that someone will say, you know, make a D, and the kid will draw a P, but is never given feedback whatsoever.
Okay.
And so they just randomly put in whatever they vaguely remember looking like a D.
What about when they do
That's
numbers
right.
backwards?
Very good.
Same sort of thing, they were never given
Show
any
me
sort of
the-
corrective feedback.
the
This is how you
Point
do
to
it
the
correctly.
key.
And then when they read, like when you're reading.
No.
Tell me if this
Sorry.
term or table.
Where's the B?
Then that means that they didn't,
Find the
you weren't, they were never
Yes.
given feedback on reading it
Good
the right
job.
way.
Where's the Q?
Point to the D.
Yeah,
Point to the D.
so.
Good job.
Touch the P.
Correct. Point to the D.
Point to the next
Yeah,
one.
it's an interesting article.
Where's the P?
Good
Maybe
job.
they'll use
See if I
it.
can track it down. 'Cause I don't think it's in
Where
Java.
is the P?
But if you tell a good job all the
So
time,
it
it
would
doesn't
be
really mean
very
anything.
good. And then
Well, you
the
have to
next
vary it
one
up.
would
Good
be-
job, nice work.
You gotta vary that.
The whole, yeah, the whole,
Show me where the Q is.
remember reinforcement is anything that actually increases the behavior.
No.
So if good job isn't changing the behavior, it's not a reinforcer then.
File,
Right.
we say, good job of pointing to the.
I just did
Correct.
it so we can do another
Yeah.
trial.
And that's actually, that's a much better way to
Oh, I
reinforce.
see. So we missed two
Um,
already.
And
So we go to
we'll
trial.
probably talk about that next quarter. I could slide that in. It's, yeah, there's specific praise, general praise, and there's a third type.
So we could just not even finish this one?
Yeah. General praise works when the student can identify what they're getting praised on their own, which is a lot of the self-management and self-monitoring piece of things.
Or that you shouldn't tell kids,
Or
like,
if
oh,
we
they're
want to
really
go
smart
instead of
when they
5
get
drives,
something right.
going to 10.
Because, and I guess he was saying that when they don't get it right, then they'll think that they're not smart.
And failure to natural.
I'm assuming we have to say.
So do you agree with that you shouldn't tell kids?
In a behavioral analysis world, you should always tell them that.
Okay.
It's just a form of reinforcement.
Reinforcement.
But you always need to make sure that there's some corrective feedback when they do fail.
Like he was saying that you should only like their effort. Like, oh, you must have tried really hard to do
But
that.
what if you
Yeah.
try really hard
And-
and
Good
fail?
attention span.
Yeah, and behavioral analysis would never say, oh, good job trying,
Mm-hmm.
because then if they're looking for social reinforcement, they got it.
Yeah.
And even though they got the answer, and they didn't get the answer correct. We can be a cruel, cruel breed, so.
I have a question.
Yep.
So the criteria would be 4 out of 5
Yes.
or 80%.
Yeah,
What is the?
4 out of 5 or 80%.
Which one?
But
it would
because
be the
if
same
we do
thing.
either or, for example, we're doing 4 out of 5, but I
Point to the key.
purposely missed 2,
Good job.
so that's not 80. So can we
Right.
go all the way to 10 to see if I get 80 out of 10, or should we go
So-
to the next
So
5?
yeah, what you would do is 1 through 5 would be one
Point
session.
to the D.
So then you would do another 5 trials. And so hopefully you would get 80% on that one. So it's essentially going to 10,
So the sessions is 5
5
in
trials.
a session.
So if you got 60 on this one,
Point to the D.
you would do another session.
Good job.
It's like
Point to the
your
D.
quizzes that I give you.
Good job. Point to
There's
the
10 questions. Each of those questions would technically be a trial,
Good job.
and then the whole quiz would be a session.
Good job.
Yeah.
I was just wondering,
I think she was asking, I don't know if you answered it. So say the person doing the testing that is being conducted on misses the first 2 trials, do we go to number 5 anyway?
Oh, I see.
Or should we
So
just go on
they
to
go miss,
another-
miss.
Another
Would you like, do I even bother?
session? Yeah.
In these activities, yes, just to kind of get some practice on it. When we look at analysis of data, we would actually probably stop this, because if they already knew how to do it, we would stop it, because this would be an indication of a motivation issue. And we'd say, all right, the student clearly is not gonna learn anything. This is only gonna become a punishment procedure. If it's a brand new thing that they've never learned before, you would continue doing it, because you would expect them to get it wrong the first few times until finally you're prompting them And they're like, oh, that's what they're looking for. And then you might start seeing plus, plus, plus. So, yeah, all this comes down to when we actually sit there and analyze the data. So, which we'll be doing a lot more throughout this quarter. So, but right now we're not at that stage of analysis. So, does that answer it?
I think mostly, I think, you know, do we belabor, if you've already missed your 80%, do we belabor the trials or just move on to the next session?
Yeah, and for
So,
our activity, we're gonna belabor
yeah.
because, once again, like, say you just stopped after this and you moved on to the next session, they may get the next section, first two wrong, or they may get minus, plus, and then you're, biting the skin of your teeth hoping that they get the rest as pluses. So, because this ends up being an instructional tool, not just data collection method. And this might make a little more sense in our next activity. So, all right. So, group one, I probably should have been a little clearer when I asked this. Individuals that were group one, did you present the SD or were you responding? Presenting, okay. If you did vice versa, whatever. So whoever whoever presented, you guys are gonna take a little break and you're gonna go, let me poke my head and see if that classroom is available. Or actually, you guys can go to the break room, that'll work. The little break room with the vending machine. If you presented, go take a little break. And group number 2, you guys are gonna be doing your cards this time.
Same thing?
You're gonna need 4 cards, yeah, you could even use the back of the QBP if you want to. But you're not gonna write QBP, you're gonna write something different. And the folks leaving are gonna have to learn how to do this. So, you guys are actually in the better boat right now, let me tell you. They get a break, so you have to do a little work, but in the end, I think you guys are better off. All right. So, I didn't want anyone to be studying up on this right now. So on each of your 4 pieces, and you're gonna actually, if you want to. The horn carries, so maybe my voice carries. I'll go get them in a moment. Okay, so. You guys are actually also gonna need a 5th piece of paper unless you've learned your definitions really well for this chapter. Which I'm guessing you haven't.
New piece of paper, right?
Just
the back?
You can use the back of one, that's fine. So on each of these pieces of paper, and I would recommend using, once again, pencil because you guys are gonna do a stimulus fade. You're going to, on one piece of paper, write stimulus generalization, one of them stimulus class, another stimulus equivalent, and then concept formation.
Okay.
And you guys are gonna end up teaching them the definition of these.
Okay, we should write the stimulus generalization.
Just write the words stimulus generalization,
Okay.
stimulus class, stimulus equivalent, and concept formation. All right? And then I'm gonna give you guys an abbreviated definition for each of these.
Can we write that on here too?
The definition?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's what they're gonna be learning. And I apologize if some of you guys aren't artists, but you're gonna need to be artists for this one too.
Stick figures?
Stick figures might work.
Are we gonna go up there?
No,
and draw it? Oh.
no. You guys are gonna draw on your papers because you're gonna do discrete trial with them, so they learn how to do what these definitions are.
Ah.
So,
Like what you were doing with the car.
no. What you guys are
Just
doing,
trying to guess.
what you guys are doing with the letters, but it's gonna be with these definitions. So. Okay. So, yeah, so you'll need 5 pieces of paper, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna write one on, all right. On your 5th piece of paper, do you guys need this bigger? Okay. Hopefully I can make this bigger. Actually, I think, I can't follow this here. Alright. Okay. So your fifth piece of paper, jot down stimulus generalization, making sure that you're just jotting this down on the fifth piece of paper so you guys know your
So we're
definition.
just writing all the definitions out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah. Sorry, next time when I do this, I'll do is I'll print it out on paper so I can just hand it to you guys.
Bless you. Is that stimuli that evoke a similar response? It's multiple?
Yeah, stimulus that evoke,
Okay.
I'm not gonna get, don't get too picky.
Something else.
Who's a really bad artist? Alright, I'm gonna start doing your next part for you. Your writing definitions.
What do we do after we finish the definitions?
Okay, so on stimulus generalization, we're gonna draw two phones.
Two phones.
Two phones, like a cell phone
Does
and
it,
a rotary phone,
Because they both ring.
because they both ring.
So you draw it underneath the,
Yeah.
the word stimulus.
Underneath it, yeah.
oh, on,
Or just anywhere on the page, that's fine.
not on the back.
Not on the back, it needs to be with the word.
So just two types of phones, you said?
Two types of phones, because that's the stimulus we're gonna fade. So we're gonna draw the phone, when they start getting that right, we're gonna erase one of the phones. And eventually there won't be any phones on there and they're just gonna have to remember stimulus generalization is whatever this is. So.
Can we talk to the next one?
For stimulus class, you're going to do 2 hats.
One, same function, different size, so they can be in baseball hat and bowling hat.
Yep.
Stimulus hat, I'm sorry. Stimulus class, 2 hats?
Yep, 2
Is that
hats.
what you said?
Yep.
Like the same type?
Different hats, so like a top hat and a baseball cap or a cowboy hat. So, because they're 2 different types of things that serve the same function. So, anybody else want me to help draw pictures? Oh, is everybody done with definitions? Okay. Alright. So here's what you guys are gonna be drawing. Don't worry about it. As long as your phone doesn't look like a baby, they'll be okay.
And the next
Stimulus equivalent, draw a baby. I just drew the head of a baby. So face with a little curly thing.
one.
Yeah, that's it on that one, because it's a
Okay.
new. Exactly. So Kirsten, I think you already see where we're going with this.
Stimulus equivalent.
Equivalents, draw a little baby.
Okay, sorry, so I'm behind.
That's fine.
So stimulus generalization was 2 phones, what was the next one?
Stimulus class is 2 different hats.
2 different hats, okay.
Yeah. I'll draw a baby for you. Dinky, okay.
Can you just draw the face of the baby?
Yeah, that's all I did.
As long as your picture is going to be different than your other pictures. So, for concept formation, you can just do actually a gray triangle and a gray balloon works, as long as they're gray.
So is that like an ABA pattern or?
For concept formation?
Uh-huh.
No. So concept formation is that you're looking at a stimulus class, even though they may be in different types of things. So here, the stimulus class is gray, even though a balloon, a circle, and a car are nothing, don't fall into the same stimulus class.
So we're not asking what the next pattern is?
No. So is everybody pretty much done?
I'm just looking for a commonality.
The last one, a gray car, a gray
Do a
circle,
gray
and
triangle and a gray balloon.
A gray triangle and a gray balloon.
Yeah.
And then gray circles?
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't hear.
as long as there's gray things that are different.
Oh,
So, okay. So I'm gonna call them in here in just a moment, and I'm gonna take this off. Everybody done with this, or?
So when we present them the card, we tell them the
So,
definition.
yeah, so your SD for them, and I'll write this on the board,
Okay.
is you're gonna tell them,
In front of the camera.
point to the word whose definition is, and then you read the definition.
Okay.
So, and hopefully what they should start doing is listening for keywords like new, or,
There he is.
you know, different function.
Mhm.
All right. Once they get 4 out of 5, you're going to erase one of the pictures.
Your phone and iPad.
Do it again till they get 4 out of 5. Then you're going to erase all of the pictures on the cards. And so hopefully by that point, they're matching the definition with just the word itself and not necessarily looking at the pictures. Does that make sense?
First part.
So you're gonna give them the SD of point to the word whose definition is, and then you're gonna read the definition. Once they get 4 out of 5 correct, you're going to erase one of the pictures. So that's your stimulus fading. You're gonna do it again, and then erase all the pictures. And then hopefully they'll be under the control of listening for the definition, looking at the word, and not paying attention to pictures. Make sense?
So we should have 3 trials,
Oh, yeah,
right?
you should have do 4 trials.
4,
That way you hit all the definitions.
okay.
So, make sense? All right, I'm gonna call them in. So,
We need 5 members.
So they just supposed to know the definitions.
But they're supposed to read the book.
So we're gonna,
so I'll explain the direction to them as well again, so you guys get it one more time.
I guess we should have them out in our messy array, right?
Yep, put them out in your messy array, don't let them see the definitions.
Should we mess up, should we change our array each time?
Absolutely, that, you're encouraged to do
Right,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Can we change that?
You didn't change your array, so, like for the. Is that right? That's all right. So, let's say we were doing the letters and you said point to P.
Okay.
Okay, good job, and then you get small. So you're gonna do the same.
oh wait, it's a D.
All right. So, your classmates are going to teach you guys some of your definitions from the book. They're going to give you the SD of point to the word whose definition is, and then they're going to give you a definition. All right? Now, this kind of goes back to your question earlier, is, Darcy, have you learned all the definitions?
No.
So theoretically,
Definitely not.
they're going to do 4 trials for one session. Theoretically, you're going to get the first 2 wrong, but you're going to start learning what some of the definitions are. You would rather have her finish 3 and 4 instead of saying, okay, we're going to start over and go on to a new session. So since this is a new behavior, you want to go through the entire session. So does that help clarify your question earlier? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Have fun learning those definitions. And they're, so go ahead. You guys are good to go.
Which,
Okay.
I was trying to.
Stimulus. Stimulus that evoke a similar response despite looking different.
No writing down the answers.
Stimulus that evoke a similar response despite looking different.
Point to accurate responding mean stimulus. That
So
could
they
be
evoke a different response despite looking different. No.
on tree.
So how are
So
we
no,
gonna-
repeat the antecedent.
No. I want you to repeat the word definition is
Okay, I need
a
to mark
stimulus
trials.
that evokes a similar response despite looking different.
And I give you the answer.
Between us.
Things, yes, good job.
Oh, she got it wrong the first time.
Don't
Don't give her
Okay.
Wait, just stimulus girls?
And you
I'm
do
just
it.
responding to tree stimulus. So point to
Point to the
accurate
one
response
It shows different stimuli that have
To the word
common
definition
elements.
You are correct.
is
Point to
accurate.
stimuli,
So,
or stimuli that
It's
is
almost like, so the first time you get it wrong, you do it again
despite looking
a
different,
second
such as subtle
until
as
you,
ring.
or until they get it right.
Untrained stimuli.
Stimuli
So
that
you gave it to her
is
once,
similar
so she got it
response
wrong.
Yeah.
So you repeated
despite
it.
looking different.
I know.
No, I repeated it, and I had her
Looking
respond to
different,
it.
Definition.
I give her the accurate response, right?
Yeah, you would.
example of it is
So you got
ring.
it.
Okay, so ring.
But that was
Bring accurate responding to new untrained stimuli.
Oh,
So hopefully next time she remembers, oh, it's all one
Okay.
Which one is accurate responding to new
That have
untrained
common
stimuli?
elements.
Despite
As I say,
Definition.
function, size, etc. such as
It's something
different
similar to
shapes.
this.
So the next one, come to
Shapes,
something that is
shapes,
visual, simplify.
Point to different stimuli.
Which one is generalization within a class stimuli
Such as
and discrimination between classes?
Different stimuli.
Yes.
Common-
Good job.
Good
job. Good.
Alright, which one is stimulus that evoke a similar response
similar
despite
to the
being
organization with a class of stimuli and discrimination between classes such as similar colors and different objects.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So after they get 4 out of 5, they did in this case.
Within class of stimuli,
Erase one of the pictures.
discrimination between
Creating
classes
the stimulus.
such as similar colors and different objects.
Okay.
They have similar color but different objects. Yeah.
So only to the.
Stimulus that evoke a similar response despite
Correct.
being different.
Because she hasn't learned it yet.
Accurate response to new and great stimuli.
Stimuli generalization.
Which one did I not choose?
Okay, man. No, well, almost everything. No, this is bad. This is so much the same. When you do it again, at least, I think you're gonna get it. Okay, let's go again. Point to stimuli
Stimulus that evoke a
similar
similar
response
response
despite
despite
looking
being
different,
different.
such as
So yeah, move on to
things
section
that
three.
ring.
And you're so.
Stimulus generalization within a class is
Correct.
and discrimination.
Okay,
Once-
different stimuli that have common
And
elements,
then you're gonna start.
same
And
functions,
discrimination between classes.
sizes, etc.,
Okay.
such as different shapes.
Such as different shapes. Are we giving them that part?
Say again?
Like
Different stimuli.
You're gonna give them the exact same.
Okay.
Different stimuli that have common elements.
You did
It
4 out
has
of
the
5.
same functions.
I'm gonna
It
start
has
to
the same
erase
size. It has the same, the same color, but the same function and the same size.
When you
Such as different shapes. Oh, no, this is the same function, the same size.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna erase
Point
it,
to
so they-
different stimuli that have common elements, such as functions and size, such as different shapes. Okay, now point to accurate responding to new untrained stimuli.
This is so bad.
Accurate responding to
What kind of-
untrained stimuli.
So what?
Okay.
Alright, so what you gotta help you solve that? You're
Then
not
last
using the grade.
is last is stimulus generalization within a class of stimuli and discrimination between
Alright.
such as similar colors and different
Stimulus
objects.
that evoke a similar response despite looking different.
Okay, you got it.
So she got 75%, right?
Yeah, from the beginning.
Accurate responding to use and train
You're
stimuli.
gonna erase one of the pictures on each of the cards.
Different stimuli that have common elements.
I'm gonna have a better eraser.
Stimulus generalization within a class of stimuli and discrimination between classes. Accurate response.
I want you to point to the word.
Wow. Now we're supposed to erase all. Then you erase all the pictures?
Yep.
Okay, so I should erase all the pictures.
Such as same color, similar color, different object.
Process of elimination.
Good.
Wait, was this the first time she got 75 or was it? Alright, yeah, so the first time you should have erased one picture. Oh, I meant one picture on each card.
That's the basic.
Sorry, so. So the first time she got 75, would have erased the one that had cell phone. Either way, this is still creating the stimuli, so it's okay.
Okay.
So what you should be doing is
So,
like giving it.
I want
So she got a baby, she got a
a similar.
Can I just sign up for the baby?
I thought
such as things.
a deranged, maybe, maybe nonetheless.
Process of elimination, right? These are new stimuli, right?
Stimulus, generalization within class, or stimuli and discrimination within classes, such as stimuli.
Alright, next time we'll put a dog down, that's untrained.
Then point to different stimuli that have common elements. Same function, same size, different segments, such as different depths. Okay, now.
Without the visual,
Stimulus that focus on more responses like that.
no different cues.
I see what you, I kind of.
What time is it? You don't.
What? I want you
Visual is
to
the
point
definition,
to
but
a
then you
word.
go over it, over and over.
Did that all.
Definition.
I did. I got two things. Yeah. An accurate responding to new traits stimuli.
Okay. Now, point to different stimuli that have common elements.
Stimulus generalization within the class is
Same
similar.
function, discrimination, size, different such
Stimulus that evoke a similar response
point
but
to different
different.
stimuli that have common elements. Same function, size, different such
What are you doing?
common elements.
Accurate responding to new and brain stimuli.
I'm not showing you anything here.
Because of
Okay, point to activate responding to new and trained stimuli. Okay, got it?
No. Keep doing this until you're right.
Then point to stimulus.
Stimulus that evoke a similar response
of
but
stimuli
different.
and discrimination between classes such as similar colors and different objects.
Good job.
Got it? Look at this.
Different stimuli that have common elements.
It's leading there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more.
Then point to different, okay, look at that. Point to stimuli that evoke a similar
Accurate
response,
response to new
despite
and
looking different,
I just keep doing that.
such as things that
And a lot of,
you got it.
a lot of BCAs that you run
So
into,
we can point
so
everything.
Because she got 60%.
we only use three colors and letters. As soon as you can become older than
I
seven,
want you to
you can't
point
be.
to
Oh, I just saw
where
it.
Which is absolutely
I repeated one. You said 80%, I'll do 75,
The
right?
school trials use,
That ring.
I'll do
every
four.
quizzes are technically just
I'm
three
gonna do
trials.
more with
So
out.
anything that
Different
varies
stimuli
from-
that have common elements.
So the plus and the minus, is that
You kinda see the picture
that
Now I want you to.
Yeah.
Stimulus generalization within the class is stimulating discrimination between classes. You're back. You're
Okay, now.
Now what do I do? You erase all the pictures after the second time? You erase all the pictures after the second time?
That has to do with stimuli that evoke a similar response, despite looking different, such as pain.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know.
Or don't get that one.
Do it until you learn, John. Or what's the female, John? Jamie?
Jamie, stimuli that have common elements.
Exactly.
Have to do it until you learn.
Same functions, that same size,
You want to
Okay.
such as different shapes.
That's why, yeah, that's why we want to make more operational.
And can I do, if we
They
have
have the same
three
function,
of
they
these,
have the same size.
Okay, stimulus that evoke a
They
similar
have
response.
common
divided
elements.
by the time of the day, collecting plus
Stimulus that evokes a similar response
Common
despite
element.
being different.
Different stimuli.
Same functions, same size, even with the same power, such as different shapes.
Such as different shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I should have.
For behaviors, closely related, maybe too much.
Different stimuli that have common elements.
Yeah, you can look at, what the response class is,
Stimulus.
so you need your hand.
Accurate responding to new untrained stimuli.
Such as the
Stimulus generalization with the class of stimuli and discrimination between classes.
I want you to put these over
Jade, you're like that. We're done.
To new trained.
I remember this, dark colored balloons. And then this one, oh, no, this was that.
It's so severe, you're trying to create.
And the last.
You need this
That
stimulus.
makes eventually it's harder and harder. So you first have to get out of the head. We'll actually talk about
Give me the stimulus and the stimuli and discrimination between classes such as similar colors and different objects.
Yeah, you would say self-induced behavior.
Got everything. So from your handling,
It's not, well, usually if you want to call it.
Do
you like my pretty drawings?
I would use tantrum, that's what I use.
Similar.
So, one of the SIDs that I did, I talked about parent contact space.
No,
Actually, I said,
it's not a remote.
hard enough to be
so they
correct.
have
It's a terrible,
common
terrible
elements.
So, yeah, now it's time to-
Very badly drawn iPhone.
That looks like a.
We usually like it hard.
Because
Because I
no
have a lot of kids that
common
will
elements.
get
So
hard.
the functional and yeah. So how can you describe stimulus generation?
So you don't really define it whether it's a side or it's top.
Don't you have an
or
iPhone?
it's yeah.
If you become
Yeah.
too narrow, you're gonna be called
Pumpkins or remote.
What you're ultimately worried about is what is the function of behavior. Any behavior that
They have
falls under that function,
similar response.
that's
So
what
remind
you're.
me, I don't know, remind me of the baby
So,
in The Simpsons.
tantrum,
The mean one. The one too.
okay, so escape
The evil
from.
baby in The Simpsons also.
You can, I do this all the time where I talk about the two different target behaviors, so tantrum, SID, or when I talk about the rest of the behavior plan, I say, these
You
are
erase the
all
name.
falling under the same.
You wipe its existence off the face of
Response
the
Yeah,
they have
similar
the same
response.
function.
For the second one, for the second section.
You didn't, because they're just good data in
Why
This is
stimulus?
AA?
the
I didn't teach her. She came from,
Oh,
trying to think whose class she came from. Yeah, she learned it from somewhere else. I didn't teach her.
Okay, I just
So,
wanted to make sure I wasn't.
No, and I would ask her what her background is and what the data means, and then kind of work with that.
Yeah, that's what I thought, I'm not gonna
So
read.
concept formation.
Next to definitions.
Same color, different shape.
Nice.
They actually do that a lot. Say when I was working at elementary school, we see that a lot.
How are you guys doing over here?
Yeah.
All done?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody else done?
Words.
So,
All right, you guys, everybody ready for the ultimate? Those that have their definitions, turn them over.
Definition within a class or stimulus.
Yes.
All right, who can tell me, and I'll give you your choices up here. Who can tell me which word involves accurate responding to new untrained stimuli? Got it? I heard it, stimulus equivalence.
Oh, yeah.
All right, which one involves stimulus that evoke a similar response despite looking different?
Generalization.
Generalization, good. Stimulus generalization within a class of stimuli and discrimination between classes such as similar
Concept formation.
concept formation, good. And different stimuli that have common elements, same function, size, etc. Stimulus class. All right. So you guys learned 4 definitions tonight pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
Does everybody understand how we use stimulus fading in that process? All right, all make sense? So, kind of going along with, I'm not sure who I was talking to about this anymore. So our very first activity was very elementary. P, Q, B, everyone already knew what those letters were. When the new group came in, they didn't know the definitions of these words. So we were able to use discrete trial and stimulus fading on a graduate school level. Same theory, doesn't matter what we were teaching, same theory. So this is kind of what I try to emphasize with all my principles of behavior and whatnot. Just because you read an article that involves self-injurious behavior of an autistic kid, they may use stimulus fading, that you could say, hey, let me take that principle and apply it to an NFL player. So does that make a lot more sense on how some of these articles, while not specific to your subject area, can be helpful? All right. So with that being said, class ends at 10, right? All right. So I think what we'll do, because I think we're going to run out of time for shaping, we'll get through imitation, and then we'll end up saving shaping for next week. So if we finish imitation by 9:30, we'll be done. So, all right. So imitation. This is a pretty easy concept. We see it all the time. So this just involves, well, things that you need in the environment that relate to, that define imitation is that, any physical movement may function as a model, the antecedent stimulus that evokes the imitative behavior. So there's some antecedent behavior, some movement that somebody sees and they repeat it. Pretty straightforward. We kind of all, innately know what imitation is. Once again, this book loves to make it a lot more complex. So, couple nuances in the ABA world is that in order for it to technically be imitative behavior, that behavior must immediately follow the presentation of the model. All right, we're going to watch a video, and some of you may, know it from other psychology classes. We're going to watch Bandura's, Bobo doll. Technically, under the ABA world, this wouldn't be imitative behavior because the children didn't, see it and then immediately do the behavior. All right. So just keep that in the back of your mind. This constitutes imitative behavior. Additionally, the model and the behavior must have formal similarity. So in this case, kind of goes along with what Kirsten and I were just talking about. Formal similarity means that if, let's say, I punch someone and some kid imitates me and punches someone, that's imitative behavior. Now if I punch them and then the kid kicks them, you couldn't call that imitative behavior because they're not similar. So that's another nuance of the ABA world. Make sense? All right. And then, once again, the model must be the controlling variable for that imitative behavior. So just because, the kid goes out there and he starts wailing on somebody, it's not necessarily imitative behavior unless he's wailing on because he just saw somebody else do it. Does that make sense? So, all right. So in regards to imitation, so the model, so the antecedent stimulus that evokes an imitative behavior. Typically in, when we're teaching kids how to do this, a lot of times you'll hear the phrase, do this is the SD, and then someone, will clap their hands, throw up their hands, whatever it may be. The do this, in this case, isn't the antecedent, it's just the attention getter for the kid. All right? The actual antecedent would be whatever imitative behavior you want them to have. So if I said, do this, and I clap my hands, the clapping the hands is actually the antecedent. The SD, I should say. So, all right. We already talked a little bit. They learn imitation obviously better the more immediate that it happens. So you model, and hopefully they do it right away. So, talked about formal similarity, so the behavior looks just like the model. And then controlling relation is that the model is the one that actually emits the behavior. So, all right. This is one of the articles I posted in the folder, is Baron Straffels, I don't know how you say that. Bear and is a bigwig in the ABA world. Other guy, obviously not as much because I don't know how to pronounce his name. So they did a lot of the research on training imitation, and they put together a whole procedure, which is in your book. So they always say assess and teach, if necessary, prerequisite skills for imitation. This is in your book, but it's certain things like you can't teach imitative behavior if the kid can't stay in their seat, or they can't attend to you, whatever it may be. So teaching comatose patients imitation behavior isn't going to happen because they're not going to attend to you. So sometimes in the educational world, they're referred to as the learning to learn skills. So next, you want to make sure that you always select a model for training. So be very clear of what you want your behavior to be. So that way, if multiple people are trying to teach this behavior, you don't have one person saying, all right, do this, and they raise their hands. And the next person comes in, they're like, do this, and they raise one hand. You're going to have a messed up model. So it's always good to do pre-testing, get that baseline, find out what they can do first. If you're doing imitative behavior, you can do a pre-test of 20 different imitative behaviors. Do this, do this, do this, because sometimes the kid already knows how to clap, but they don't know how to stomp their feet. What we find a lot of times, and this is just developmental, is if you're doing imitative behavior, it's easier for, a lot of kids learn imitative behavior for things they can see. Whereas if you say, do this, and you touch their nose, they don't see their nose, so a lot of them might be able to clap their hands but can't touch their nose. So when you're kind of running through your pretest, keep that in mind of how complex is that skill. So, and is it salient for them? So, sequence models for training. So once you get your pretest and you identify different things that they can do, put them in some logical order. For example, if they can clap their hands, but they can't stomp their feet or touch their nose, it makes more sense to teach stomping feet before teaching how to touch the nose. All right. And then you, of course, conduct your imitation training. So I use a lot of, once again, little kid procedures of imitation training. Imitation training is used a lot of times in, for new employees coming into some job. This is how you would do the job, and they have someone model, or they have it on a video. And video modeling is one of the big things right now. Video modeling obviously doesn't necessarily have that immediate feedback unless there's someone standing right next to them. So that gets a little touchy whether that's actually imitation or not. So a couple guidelines for imitation training. So keep training sessions active and brief. So don't belabor the point. Reinforce both prompted and imitative responses. So the previous chapter we just talked about stimulus fading. If you're using some sort of physical prompts, and this is the first time they're learning them and you're using those prompts, reinforce that. But obviously eventually fade those prompts, and then hopefully they're using imitative responses. So. Pair verbal praise and attention with tangible reinforcers. So, our last quarter we talked about stimulus pairing. So that's all this is talking about. So eventually you want them off tangibles and just have verbal praise, but that's a process. And these are all things that Bear and Streffel talk about. So that's why I'm quickly running through them. But they're all in your book. You want to monitor data for decrease in progress. This goes with the analysis of behavior. If you start seeing them decrease, they're probably bored or some motivation error. It doesn't necessarily mean that they had a stroke and they forgot everything. So obviously keep a record. If you don't have data, it doesn't exist. And then fade out prompts. So All right, that was quick and dirty. So now for the time to practice. So actually, you know what? Okay. I did not put together a, oh, that's right, okay, yeah. And I didn't put together an activity for this one because I thought imitation's pretty straightforward. But what we're gonna do just, oh no, I did, sorry, I thought this was sorry, I thought it was in my shaping section, but no, it is. So this, I hope this one's gonna be fun. We don't necessarily need people to leave the room. If you get distracted by other people working on the activity, you can to come back to it. So here's what you're gonna do. With your partner, you're just gonna kind of run through those procedures outlined by Bear and Streifel. And I think it's on page 284 in your book if you wanna use that. 284 is way off. Let's try that again. 416 is where it starts. So, yeah. So we see it like goes pre-testing, sequencing the selected models for training, and so on and so forth. That's their procedure. All right. So here's what you're going to do with your partner. The two of you are going to come up with a 5-step greeting. So it could be something simple as, you know, hey, slap the hand, fist pound, woo, dance, play. So five steps to your greeting. So you guys are going to work out a 5-step greeting. All right. What you're going to do then is once you get your 5-step greeting down, you're going to find another group, and you're going to model your greeting to that other group. So you're going to say, do this, and then you and your partner are going to do your greeting, and then that other group has to do your greeting. So they're going to look at you and try to model your behavior, imitate your behavior. Once again, you're going to use it just like discrete trial. You're going to watch them. Did they get 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of those steps in order? So did they slap the hand? Yes. Did they do the fist pound? Yes. Did they go, woo? No, they didn't. You know, they did the shuffle first and then the woo. So they had those 2 out of order. And then they couldn't remember anything and they said, biggity bang. So.
One person goes for the right thing, another person doesn't.
Then they obviously don't have the greeting.
Okay.
Both of them need to do it in order for that one trial to be correct. So they go through the greeting, they get it wrong. So in this case, they only got 20% of the greeting. You're going to say, give them the corrective feedback again. Do this, and you might do it a little slower for them so they can watch. And then that's the correction. So you would say, okay, do this, and then you do your greeting again. And they have to imitate it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Should be a little fun, and hopefully kind of get that modeling together. Now, let me jump back to this Bear and Streifel thing. So, okay. So, obviously, first of all, you would assess and teach, if necessary, prerequisite skills for imitation training. You can all sit there and observe and listen and follow along. So, we know that everyone's going to be able to do this, so you don't have to follow that procedure. Select your models for training. That's what you guys are doing right now with your greeting. So that's covered. You're going to do the pre-test. Everyone initially would get a 0% on this, unless they're really, really lucky, and then they should buy a lottery ticket, because in this pre-test you would just say to the other group, do this. Or, no, sorry, do a greeting, whatever, and you guys would be like, I don't know what your greeting is. So we won't even bother with the pre-testing. We'll just go straight into the sequencing models for training. Now, how you guys do that is up to you. If you run through, so let's say plus, plus, minus, minus, minus. If you decide, all right, they got these 2, I'm going to just teach the first 3 steps. So do this, and then have them do the first 3 steps. You can do it that way. So however you want to sequence your model for training. All right, makes sense? All right, this will be fun. And next week, you guys all come in, you could go up to Jerry and Dora and be like, hey, what's up? And they'll be totally confused with whatever greeting you guys are doing. So, I think we have an odd number of groups if we do 4s. 4? No. Yeah, we do. So, some group just learn an extra greeting. It's cool. You know. So,
I thought you were supposed to be our extra group.
except I would need a partner.
You're back
Oh, no,
there.
you can do it in Imagine.
I could.
Sorry.
All right. I don't dance, and that's all on camera now. That's great. So,
You have that video.
I know. It's gonna be all over YouTube. Look at this crazy professor.
You at least need to show your wife when you get home and make her laugh.
Oh, she's seen worse, I'm sure. She's seen me actually try to dance. So, all right, get to those greetings.
Create one and then we.
You can do it.
Which one do you want?
Did they get that though?
Everybody up with one of those. Okay.
I don't even know the names anyway.
So, can we make it simple?
How do you want to do it? Contract. This month. This and then.
We're all on board.
Okay.
All 5 steps are
You don't have to make it super difficult.
Everybody goes
Do like
first.
3 gags, whatever.
Do it.
But since we don't have the staff,
They already got it.
So there's.
so that's what I'm coming.
Yes. I didn't know you were trying out things or?
Do that again, because I only count 4.
Let's do that for
You didn't catch the first one.
I'm at, oh, I got it. All right. But if you, both groups are ready, teach each other. Just make sure you're collecting data.
You know what's coming to do first?
Yeah, we'll have you guys do it first. Alright, so. Yes.
Can you write it down? What?
No, you can write it down.
Collecting data. Oh, as the learner now. No, as the instructor, you definitely can.
Yeah, first one.
Okay, so this is, do we say like watch?
No,
Or we
oh,
just
you
say
can do
do
this.
this?
You can say this. As long as you have a clear SD. So watch is fine, do this,
Okay.
something to get their attention.
So, do this.
Okay, that's 2.
Oh, let's see.
That was fine. That was fine.
Do it again.
No.
Oh, do it again.
And you guys have to do it. And they're gonna give you corrective feedback.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, gosh.
what did I
Just come on.
Oh, look at theirs. That's crazy.
Candace only 2 now.
Okay, so they missed the steps, so does that mess up the whole thing?
Because something's.
We only missed one step.
You only missed one step, so they have.
Did we get the first one right?
So, no.
Oh, we get
So
the
they
second
missed 2,
one?
they got the last, you guys got the last
Oh,
three.
it was this.
One.
So,
No.
That's the last one?
so yeah, now give them the corrective feedback and be like, no, do this.
Okay,
No.
all right, okay.
Do this.
Oh.
You may have to.
Okay, so,
What was this one again?
okay,
Okay.
2.
So now you would say, so that was your
Okay.
corrective feedback.
Right.
So now you guys would repeat it again.
4.
Okay.
5.
No.
No?
So,
Yeah.
so,
So that was the corrective feedback. So let them now
right.
redo it again.
Okay.
So do this, this is a new trial.
wait, go ahead.
1. Wrong hand. It's right here. 1.
Okay.
That's the part we missed the last time, right?
One.
So that would be 5.
4.
Oh, unless we make it, unless.
Okay, so you missed one part,
Yes.
so that, let me give you the corrective.
What did we miss?
Okay.
Okay. I can't remember what we just
this is it, we didn't do this.
3,
Okay.
4,
We're good, we're good.
5. Okay.
Ready?
So,
Is that what we did?
You guys ready to see
1,
Of course.
this? Okay.
2,
Two.
3, 4,
What?
5.
There you go.
How many trials did you get there?
That was your third one.
Yeah.
That was your third
3
one.
trials.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here's,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
okay.
I don't think I-
All right. Ready?
Are you ready?
Okay.
You go back first and then.
Well, something's falling.
Reel it back in.
And then we pull forward.
And then we move
Okay.
forward to get closer to each other.
We can't get another demonstration, huh?
Okay, got it.
So we start like
Like
this.
So for imitation training, we just present you guys with testing the best you can. And then we give you guys feedback on doing it again.
They got this out of order.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
I'm lost now.
So just stumble through anything that
Okay.
you remember.
What do you remember, like? This,
Okay.
and then pull back. And then,
Okay, so how many steps did they get correct?
So negative, this was like not really. It was close. It's falling
That
though.
would,
I went backwards.
Not too.
If
It's not right.
it wasn't
Hey,
exactly
try
what you
it
want,
again.
then it's
Okay,
fine.
so it's
Try it again.
first and then
Okay.
plus.
There's no mercy, maybe.
All right.
Okay,
I don't think
so
I
now
was
that you have your data, you know,
Okay.
you don't have to teach 3, 4, and 5.
all
So
of
just teach 1 and 2, say do this, teach those 2 steps.
Which is better yoga, like.
I know.
Be done.
Or like this.
There.
Good job in the corner.
Oh, sorry. I thought
You don't even know it.
And you're
No, it's
100%.
Falling down.
Okay.
You guys got your handshakes?
We got it.
Yes.
We're gonna have
Okay.
that group over here come and
Okay.
whoever wants to learn a new handshake or greeting, whatever.
Your one's a tough
We
one.
can all learn.
Yeah.
just tough.
What is that?
You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have the.
I don't even remember ours anymore.
I thought you guys were.
Alright, so we're teaching ours?
Yeah.
I think they're still learning it. Are you guys ready?
Just please don't remember.
So stumble through what you know.
And then I think, did they shake hands?
I don't remember.
And
I do remember.
then I know there was some clicking at the end.
Data on this?
That's the end?
That's the end.
So they did 1, 2, and 5, right?
Oh, okay, we did 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so 3
I
and
can't
4.
remember the other two.
So now you can target those areas.
Okay.
So
So,
2 and 4.
we were doing the whole thing or just
No,
3 and
just
4?
4.
3, 4, and then at the end
You
you're gonna
guys
do the
did
whole
2.
thing.
We did 1, 3, 5.
1, 2, 5.
1, 2, 5.
2, and 1, 2, 5.
Did you guys shake hands?
Demonstrate the whole thing over
Yeah.
again now?
Yeah, that's 2.
So we're ready.
Yeah, we went.
So they're actually
Yeah.
sequencing them
Yes,
all.
and then you
And then I
snap.
just remembered.
Okay,
So
so 3 and 4 are.
However you want to do it. So you guys did all 5 steps.
Oh, yeah.
They
Okay, so-
identify what
Okay.
ones they got wrong and just target on those. At the end, they have to demonstrate all
Way
5
too
steps.
excited.
Because they could forget what the other ones how did they got right the first
So you
time.
could.
Okay. They
Is
missed
that right?
3, right?
I don't know.
And instead of
Yeah,
questioning,
they're gonna-
start jotting down your data. Get used to recording data. All right.
Which one you guys ready? Okay, so
Go ahead.
then we go this first. And then
We're
we
just gonna
close our
walk.
hands.
Okay.
All right, go.
Click,
So,
snap.
are we doing it again both ways? Like
Really
teaching
don't
them, or
right.
just have them teach us?
Have them teach you guys
Okay.
first, so that way they have a
And
chance to
have to
record
get
some data.
100%.
Okay.
And if they're
Okay.
still not done yet,
And-
We're
and-
ready for the.
Alright, let's go.
I mean, growing his hair out.
Okay.
call it hey. So probably just gonna ask you that.
I gotta get feedback from you. I was like, what is the last one?
So they don't do step by step, right?
Yay.
This
Initially,
complicated, we can go step by
well,
step.
Let's learn
yeah,
better.
initially you just model the whole thing, and then, yeah, depending,
Okay.
they would
gonna
mark down
teach
which
us?
ones you guys get wrong. If they want to teach those individual
do
steps, they can do that.
Uh-oh.
So we have the hey as
Alright.
You want
We
to try
have,
again?
Yeah, oh, yeah, don't run
I gotta
through,
remember it first.
don't tell them you said, just model it.
Okay, okay,
And they're gonna repeat as much as they can remember.
okay, we have one as.
That was seamlessly done. No, there was a subtle,
That
there
was
was a
fun.
subtle
Oh.
twist.
Just do your handshake.
Okay.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So let's start from the beginning.
I think it's like,
Okay.
there was a third, that was,
That's it.
Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
oh.
Hey.
I'm already lost.
I got it.
Record what they're getting right and wrong each step. So they got the first one.
I know this was there.
remember this one.
That's right.
Oh, what's that?
Alright, there's
Oh.
actually years of grasp. I forget.
This one, right?
That was the
Okay.
ending of it.
Yes. So number two
That's
was
two,
the top number.
three.
So do you want us
Oh,
to
yeah.
repeat it?
So we're supposed to
Okay.
want to.
Yeah, so honestly, since they only missed one step, I just remodel the whole thing again.
Okay.
Good. Got it.
So the subtle nod was
First one
the
is-
first one.
Alright, what's up?
You guys should learn
Okay.
theirs.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't
That's
remember.
not so weird.
Okay.
You should learn
They went
theirs.
fishing.
It was based on an actual individual, some of it, right?
There was a girl here on campus like that. Every time she saw somebody say something or do something, she'd look at me and she,
All right.
she'd look at me and she'd do this to them when their back was turned.
So this is I.
And then she'd look at me and I'd start laughing. I don't know why she did that, but it was really funny.
Every
So
time.
do
now
you
every
remember
time I
what they
see her,
did?
I go like this.
Okay.
and
Let's see
laugh.
if they remember what you. Okay.
They did?
Yeah.
That was low, ready?
Okay.
So let me
Well,
let's show you, this is your
And then-
corrective feedback.
Okay. And then.
And, no, yeah.
Okay, watch this
Yeah.
Now you do
I
that.
don't know if I can remember
You
theirs.
remember theirs?
Okay.
I forgot.
You forgot it? Sure.
Yeah, I remember it. Come on.
Sure forgot her own handshake.
Okay,
Was
so-
it like this?
You can make anything up of it
Yeah.
right now.
And then it shake, and it was open the hands,
Okay. Got it?
and,
There you go, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
theirs.
oh gosh.
Like, I know what, I know.
Okay, I have to follow these in.
The second
Good.
one.
All right.
You used to be a reading every week.
Good job.
Oh, yeah.
So I think every group's got to teach as well as
Yeah.
learn. So. All right. Hopefully that was sounded like that was a fun activity.
Yeah.
But obviously model what imitation training is the model's presented, you're hoping that they can, mimic it. If not, you reteach it. And there were a couple different ways that people retaught it. Some went through all 5 steps again. Some identified, hey, they got step 2 and 3 wrong, let's just teach that, and then have them do all 5 steps again. Either approach is fine. When you are officially doing this and you're charting everything, you would on your phase change line, so you got your graph and they bottomed out. On your phase change line, you would write something like teach steps 2 and 3. So, and that way you know what your intervention was, and then back to the full behavior. So, yeah. All right, fun on imitation training. So I was going to show you Bandora's Bobo video. It's about 3.5 minutes. So, like I said, it's not a perfect example. It's not an ABA example of imitation, and you'll hear him refer to it as observational learning, which is what the ABA world uses as observational learning. But in order to get to observational learning, you have to teach clients, students, whoever, how to do imitation first. All right. So, before I start the video, any questions? Nothing? All right. Whoops. Video, let's hope this works. Oh, I didn't make it a link. Whoops. Way to go, Kelly. Yeah, I don't know why I just didn't. I could just do this. Let's try that. There we go. That's so much smarter. Sound, I don't know how sound works in this. I've never run
Did
it.
you plug in the sound?
Probably not.
It's attached to the video here.
It's attached to the video cable?
Yeah, very good. A little
I see.
I don't see
Lights. Oh, yeah. Static, that's a good sign. Just
We found a little auxiliary cable.
yeah. They may just not be talking yet. Another sound at this point. Yeah.
Turn it to mind again.
Yeah, mine's running the light on. Well, it says it's in the right place. Attached. All right, well, this doesn't work, we'll move on.
Put that one in the section.
This thing?
The children were then left in the playroom.
Brilliant, all right. So that 3.5 minute video now turned to 6 minutes. Some of the things they don't show in the video is the actual rewarding by the second adult. So that positive reinforcement.
My initial research and observational learning centered on the social modeling of aggression. In our experiment, preschool children observed an adult model beat up an inflated Boba doll in novel ways. She pummeled it with a mallet, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, and threw it down and beat it. And these novel acts were embellished with hostile remarks. The children were then left in the playroom that had a variety of toys. Now, the children who had observed the aggressive modeling adopted much of it. They even invented new ways for attacking the doll. Children who had not observed the adult model were less aggressive and never hit the Boba doll in the novel ways that were modeled. The children who had been exposed to the aggressive modeling showed an increased attraction to guns, even though the adult model never used them. At the time we did this research, it was widely believed that seeing others venting aggression would drain away the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to modeled aggression is hardly cathartic. Televised violence has 4 major effects. teaches aggressive styles of behavior, weakens restraints over aggression, desensitizes and habituates viewers to human cruelty, and shapes viewers' images of reality. With the enormous advances in the technology of communication, observational learning from the symbolic environment is placing an increasingly powerful role in people's everyday lives. Human attitudes, values, styles of behavior are now being modeled worldwide. As a result, televised modeling is becoming an influential vehicle for political and social change. We now have global broadcasts of societal conflicts as they are happening.
All right. So, I know one individual that took the class 2 years ago wants to look at video games and their influence, obviously, on kids. And so he's looking at some of that imitation behavior. And sort of, if there is imitative behavior, how are the students or those kids getting reinforced, you know, immediately following that? And that's where that imitation piece of things. Obviously, we said that there needs to be feedback, you know, some sort of consequence for positive or negative reinforcement to increase or decrease the behavior. So, that's right. So, all right, that wraps up stuff on imitation. And Jerry's back. Anyone want to greet him?
Oh, Jerry.
Got it all on tape.
Yes, you do. You have a lot to learn, let me tell you. So, should we slide? We'll slide shaping into next week, because there's some activities there. So, yeah, I don't think we'd finish our shaping activity by 10 o'clock. And I don't like having you guys start something and then try to come back and finish the activity. So we'll do shaping at the beginning of next week. Any questions about tonight?
Yeah, what you did.
So,
I mean, we'll review it.
Just kidding.
So, yeah, we did stimulus control and imitation. And so if any of the activities we did on there, you guys have any questions, Darcy's all ready to teach you.
That's right.
Actually, while these guys are packing up, I'll talk to you two about your final presentation.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, and
Differential reinforcement.
you're doing differential reinforcement, and there's a couple different types in there, so just choose one.
Choose one of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, have a good night. I'll see you guys next week.